Good morning. I love the fresh growth. This is actually the same tree that we have over there just outside of Ducanaltum that's getting more and more in red flower. Maybe we'll head over there in a moment. Ponciana tree. Some people disagree with me on that name, but that's okay. Even Kathleen. She's the most belligerent in this issue. And speaking of belligerence, the subject of James's letter today, with a whole switch in the reading pattern, is about war. Where do all the wars come from? It's very interesting, especially when you hear the planes flying overhead. And this is wisdom from 2,000 years ago. Actually, yes, James's letter is wisdom literature, a little bit in the tradition of the biblical wisdom literature. And that's actually fascinating in a way, because as you heard me saying more than once, my dad used to say, you can't put a wise head on young shoulders. So wisdom is part of the beautiful gift God has given us. It's a fruit from the capacity of observation and reflection, the capacity of experience. So wisdom is the processing of great knowledge in its application to life. Wisdom is also a gift of the Holy Spirit. The first one, wisdom, understanding, counsel, fortitude. You could have a lot of knowledge but be very unwise. I imagine there are some professors who get drunk. It's not very wise. There are people who have great talents, but they use them to hurt others. Not very wise. And wisdom is the processing of great knowledge in practical applications to better our fellow person. And it's powered a lot by love, to want to do good. Love is wanting to do the good for the other, to really help them. Look how this tree is blossoming. Even 2 days ago it was about half that volume. We call it our Pentecost tree because it's always blossoming at Pentecost. Last year it was struggling to be blossoming at Pentecost, but there were red blossoms coming. And now you can see the whole tree is going to become red. You can see over here there are parts on the side. Maybe we should come back here in the next few days. But actually with Pentecost we've closed quite a period of spiritual reflection along certain lines. And there we think of Lent and Easter. And how many days of Lent are there? Well, 40. And how many days of Easter season are there between the resurrection and Pentecost? And you're going to tell me 50, because Pent is from the Greek word for 5. Pentecost, 50 days of celebration of Easter, of experiencing the joy of the risen Lord. So if you add up 40 and 50, what do you get? And if you divide it by 3, what do you get? So 40 and 50 are 90, and divided by 3, and you have 30. So basically you've got 3 months. So for the last 3 months we've been reading from the scriptures, like we do every day, all year round, for the last 4 and more years. So when we read the scriptures during this special period of Lent and Easter, these are olives in case anybody didn't know, then we are in a way, certain sense, jumping around the scriptures, because the main criteria for the choice of readings is simply the themes of Lent and Easter. Let's say in Lent, prayer, fasting, and alms, charity, kindness, and so on. And then the joy of Easter, the victory over death and sin. And all of those things are always constant, really. But the system of reading the readings goes straight to those topics in a way, and also has a whole dynamic of leading up to all the preparation that goes from the very beginning up to the story of Jesus, because it's all built in all that went before it. And then we have the impact of the resurrection and new people who are reconciled. And so then that brings us to all the Acts of the Apostles and the development of the Christian community of the church. But now we switch to ordinary time. And ordinary time isn't ordinary in the sense of just ordinary stuff. It's the regular pattern for the readings the whole year through, which more or less is the pattern that was followed in the temple times by God's chosen people. And so we read the books systematically. So we won't be jumping around from this author to that author, from this book to that book, but we'll be reading the book systematically. And there's also a great gift in doing that, because we get a whole perspective of the entire picture of the scriptures. Some people like at some point in their lives just to read the Bible straight through, and that's also a valuable exercise. Somebody left their craft here. Can you tell me what it is? It has wheels, but most people find it difficult to walk on water, and it's much more difficult to stay on top of water with wheels, but actually it's maybe some type of canoe. We hope they have good fun. So we're in ordinary time, and we had a very late night last night. We were celebrating the birthday of a wonderful doctor who was very good to us for many years, and he passed away a little less than 2 years ago, actually, 6 or 10 weeks after his birthday. He had a birthday celebration here. He was 70, and then very suddenly, sadly, he was taken from us, and they were with his family last night celebrating. And so allow me to be short this morning after that introduction. And I'd just like to point out two things. The way our world suffers so much division and conflict, for one. And secondly, and that expresses itself in wars, for example, but I always say wars from the kitchen to the international theatre, because we all have that issue. So the question, where do the wars come from, is not just a question for the senior politicians, it's a question for every one of us. And then, in a certain sense, tying up everything we said so far this morning in the introduction, the last line of today's reading is very interesting, of the Gospel. And they kind of go hand in hand. Kind of go hand in hand. I'll just read it out for you here. And taking a child, he placed it in their midst, because they were wondering who was the greatest. Competition. Overcome the other. And taking a child, he placed it in their midst, and putting his arms around it, he said to them, "Whoever receives one child such as this in my name receives me. And whoever receives me receives not me, but the one who sent me." So that's the total antithesis to division. Every single one of us, made in the image and likeness of God, is representing God. And through the incarnation, we as Christians believe that there's such a union between God and us. Not just an image and likeness anymore, but a complete union. Not a melting together into an undistinct union, but each of us still have our freedom. We are still genuine, true persons. And yet God is so bonded with us that if we do anything good or bad to another person, it's like we do it to God. God is not indifferent to what we do to each other. Let's say he takes it personally. I remember I was a bit of an idiot on a particular day in school. I was new in the school, in high school, and all those little rivalries that are between kids, you know. And I pushed one kid who was older than me, and he really went after me. And another kid from our locality was a great athlete. In fact, I just met him 2 weeks ago when I was home a couple of times. And he faced off this kid who was after me without knowing that I had provoked him. And he said, "You never lay a hand on that guy." So he protected me. He identified with me. God identifies with each person. We can't hit anybody. We can't do harm to anybody. We see that this vision is that we're all connected. And that's also why prayer is so good. And your prayer can affect these warplanes above us. We're all connected. We're all deeply connected. And that's the antithesis of the disunity we're experiencing. We're truly deeply connected. And we've got a lot of work to do. A lot of effort. But the Lord wants it and will bless any efforts we make. We've got a lot of work to do in our world today. We've got a lot of work to do. We've got a big mission to do, to help every human being to recognize the other in their difference, in their richness, in their gifts, in their needs. People, God bless you. See you later, alligators. There we go.